The lights inside the grand auditorium shimmered like 1,000 little suns. The air buzzed with excitement as people filled every seat, holding their phones ready to capture the next viral moment. On this night, no one knew that history was about to repeat itself, in the most unexpected way. Backstage, a young man stood silently, head slightly bowed, his hand trembling as he adjusted the strap of his guitar. He was Freddie Aguilar's son, a name that carried both pride and pressure in equal measure. He had grown up hearing stories about his father, the legendary artist who touched millions with Anik, the anthem of love, regret, and redemption. But tonight, this young man wasn't here to live in that shadow. He was here to face it. As the stage director signaled him, his pulse quickened. The sound of the crowd was a distant roar. When the host announced, "Please welcome the son of the one and only Freddie Aguilar," the audience burst into applause. Cameras zoomed in as he stepped onto the stage, his sneakers squeaking slightly against the polished floor. He raised his head, and for a moment, everyone could see the resemblance, the same gentle eyes, the same quiet fire. The judges smiled politely, one of them leaning forward. "So, you're Freddie Aguilar's son. Big shoes to fill," one said with a half grin. The young man nodded humbly, clutching his guitar. "Yes, sir," he replied softly, "but tonight, I just want to fill my own." The crowd murmured, intrigued by his answer. There was something disarmingly sincere about him, a quiet soul carrying the weight of a famous name but determined to prove himself. He took one deep breath, his eyes closed, and when he exhaled, the room seemed to breathe with him. The lights dimmed. The host whispered something into his earpiece. The audience leaned forward in silence, waiting to see whether this would be another tribute act or something truly original. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was holding its breath. And when he finally strummed the first note, a ripple of emotion traveled through the hall. But that came in the next scene, when everything changed. The room hushed as the sound of his guitar filled the space, soft, melodic, almost haunting. It wasn't Anik, nor any of his father's old songs. It was something new, yet familiar, as if Freddie's soul whispered through his son's fingers. The first few notes glided through the air like a confession. Then he began to sing. His voice wasn't flawless, but it was raw, the kind of voice that carried emotion instead of perfection. The lyrics spoke of growing up as someone's son, of wanting to be seen not as an echo, but as a person with his own story. His tone trembled at first, but soon grew stronger with every line. The pain, pride, and love poured out of him like water breaking a dam. One by one, the judges' expressions softened. The audience, who had expected a copy of Freddie Aguilar, began to see something entirely different, a young artist telling his truth. A woman in the front row wiped her tears quietly. A cameraman zoomed in on his face, sweat shining on his forehead as his fingers danced on the strings, the guitar becoming his voice. Midway through the song, a standing ovation erupted before he even finished. The energy in the room changed. You could feel the respect, the realization that he wasn't just carrying a legacy, he was creating one. As he sang the final chorus, the lights behind him flared golden, illuminating him like a silhouette of both past and future. The last note lingered, hanging in the air long after the music stopped. For a few seconds, there was total silence, that rare, sacred silence that only follows greatness. Then came the explosion, cheers, applause, and shouts that shook the studio. Judges stood, clapping, some even tearing up. In that moment, he wasn't Freddie Aguilar's son anymore. He was simply himself. The applause thundered across the hall, echoing like a storm. The young man stood frozen, his chest rising and falling rapidly, tears pooling in his eyes. He looked overwhelmed, maybe even disbelieving. One of the judges leaned forward, eyes glistening. "Your father gave us Anik, a song that spoke to generations. But tonight, you gave us your soul." The audience erupted again, louder than before. He smiled shyly, pressing his palms together in gratitude. "Maraming salamat po," he whispered, his voice cracking. Cameras zoomed in on his face as he wiped away tears, and in that vulnerable moment, the entire world saw something real, the human side of legacy. Backstage, when he finally stepped off the stage, the crew embraced him, congratulating him on what they called the performance of the night. He leaned against a wall, holding his guitar tightly, whispering a quiet prayer, "Thank you, Papa. I hope I made you proud." The next morning, clips of his performance flooded social media. Freddie Aguilar's son brings crowd to tears. Read one headline, "He didn't copy his father, he honored him." Read another, Within hours, the video hit millions of views, drawing praise from musicians and fans worldwide. At home, an old framed photo of him with his father sat on the table. He placed his guitar beside it and smiled. He had finally stepped out of the shadow, not by rejecting his father's legacy, but by lighting it in his own way. For the first time, he was no longer the son of Freddie Aguilar. He was the artist who made the world listen again.